We have no Tony here?
No, he's here.
Oh, he is?
And
Yeah.
he's muted. He's talking, but he's muted.
Oh,
Someone hold up a sign.
Morning, gentlemen.
hey, Bob.
Morning.
I think you're on there twice, Bob, for me at least.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got
really?
it twice too.
I'm echoing too.
All right, now I'm on. Good.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's get going then. I gotta call the roll because I see everybody, but I'll do it anyway. John DeWolf. He's here. Gotta hit that little microphone in the upper right corner. There you go.
Got it. Thank you, Tony. I'm here.
Good morning. Richard Swezak.
Here.
DeAndrea's here. Bob Doan has sent in his comments, as has Ken Peterson. That leaves us with Al Regina,
Here.
Ryan Thompson,
I'm here.
and Bob Don.
Present.
All present and accounted for. What I
And
was,
Rob Lewandowski, Tony.
what was that?
And Rob Lewandowski.
I missed you, Rob.
You did.
There you are. I don't know why. You know what? I checked them all off ahead of time. I didn't double check. Good morning. All
Good
right.
morning.
So what I thought we would do typically is let Janita give us her report and move on.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the board members. Mr. Chairman, for this month of August, there is not a new report because I won't be running it until September 1st. I presented the reports to the board at your last meeting in July. So I just wanted to step in and say hi and to explain that I run the reports every 2 months.
Okay.
And for August, there is not one. You will
Very
have
good.
one in September.
Okay. That's fine with us. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
All right. You're
but-
welcome.
And the other thing I'd like to do, while we have everybody present, is to discuss, there's 3 items of correspondence that I think that deserve a little bit of conversation. The first one is asking for volunteers to participate as a observer for the state board during the EAC ABET review of Trinity College. So it's an invitation to anybody that would like to volunteer. They sit in, it's a couple to 3 days is where they describe it. And I guess it's just to be part of the team and listen and learn. And it runs for October 29th through the 31st. So if anybody has time or interest, you would notify Beth Mundy at ABET down in Baltimore. Any questions? Any volunteers?
3 days is a long time.
Yeah, it is. None of us have it.
An afternoon wouldn't be too bad, but I don't know about 3 days.
No, 3 days. It's apparently an all-day thing, an all-day. So that's it. The other one is a letter from.
I've been involved in them at UConn
Yeah.
as a member being visited, so I know they are pretty intensive, and it is an interesting process. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to do it since I'm UConn professor emeritus. So, but I would urge if somebody wanted to do it, it would be worth doing.
Thank you, John. The next is a letter from Mark Melanson, the chief building official in South Windsor. Periodically, we get the same inquiry from somebody, and it's about what's required lawfully, I guess, or by our regulations. And I don't know that our regulations are truly specific to this issue. But if the town of Windsor, South Windsor, requires plans to be signed and sealed, that's one thing. On the other hand, as a professional, if you're setting up specifications for use either in construction or evaluation or design, they should be signed and sealed. You're setting the standards and the specifications, and people are relying on that as being in accordance with the applicable codes or regulations or standards. And I think that's the answer to this. If you're preparing a design or setting the specifications, they must be signed and sealed if you prepared it. Anybody have an opinion?
Well, I think that what happens is that, sometimes there's architects who don't hire a design professional, and they sort of, rely on their own knowledge in order to create some documents that look like, they're prepared by a professional, design professional. So, I guess, that the question then turns out, is an architect who signs and seals some drawings that he did for, plumbing or HVAC or, electrical or whatever, or even structure. Is he adequately knowledgeable to know what he's doing, or should the building official require a design professional to review it and, put their seal on it?
Well, there's a good point. At one time, it was my understanding that in the building code, a residential building, for example, less than 5,000 square feet did not need to be designed by a licensed architect. So I don't know if that's still the code, but then you would say, well, if the architect can do that, can he also do the plumbing and the electrical? So on the other hand, then the architect says, well, the licensed electrician does the electrical work, the licensed plumber does the plumbing because it's less than 5,000 square feet. But the building official could require that it be signed and sealed. But I don't think that's the question. So I just think, does a mechanical drawing for a building, is it not required to be stamped by a licensed architect? Or can it be? You see, does an engineer need to stamp mechanical drawings for a building not required to be stamped by an architect?
Yeah, I think that, again, an engineer should be stamping their own drawings in terms of if a mechanical, entity designs mechanical systems for a building and an architect is not involved, and I guess that's what he's alluding to, that an architect is not involved, but the mechanical engineer is involved. Does that mechanical engineer need to sign and seal those drawings? Because there are some, I know, mechanical contractors that do design build, and sometimes, I think that, the larger firms do have, an engineer that on the staff, or they work with an engineer who signs and seals their drawings. But you could possibly get a smaller mechanical contractor who says, well, I could, all I need to do is install a boiler and run some piping, to make sure that, the water's circulating. And I need to be a licensed engineer in order to install this boiler and make it work properly. I've done 1,000 of them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it does, a competent mechanical contractor who installs, systems for a living, and it has installed a significant amount of these, systems, is he still required to get a professional engineer seal, which is
Right.
just another layer of bureaucracy.
Right. Well, what do you think, Rob?
I think the question is way too vague to answer, because I
Right.
think, stamp mechanical drawings for buildings. So I try to think of examples. One example could be putting, like Richard said, a new boiler in a house. That, the plumber takes out a permit, does it. It's a pretty simple job. But if you're putting a new boiler in a 100,000 square foot commercial building, I would fully expect that to be stamped by a, maybe it's an existing shell, Tony, an existing old mill building that you want to retrofit a mechanical system into. I would fully expect that to be stamped by that mechanical engineer, because it's there must be a threshold maybe in the Boca code or something where, like you said, it kicks in where it's got to be stamped.
Right,
It's
so
in a
that's the
large
note.
application, I would fully expect it.
Right, so that's the note I made to myself. If there's a different criteria for the building code and the architect, you're not required to have an architectural designer or license for more than or less than 5,000 square feet, then you would argue, I don't need to have anybody prepare the plan. Let the licensed plumber, licensed electrician, licensed mechanical contractor do their job. But once you get over that threshold, so it comes down to, look, what does the building code require? You know, and if that's the case, then when the engineer does a plan, it should be signed and sealed.
You know,
So
and
is that the simple answer? If an engineered design is required, then it shall be signed and sealed.
I think that's the answer,
Yeah,
because
that's
none of
the
these
only way you
towns
can
have
answer
their
it.
own, none of the towns have their own building codes. They all reference, like you said, the Boca code or something else, but it's probably the Boca. So they're all relying on some code. But
It's
again,
the IBC now.
IBC, yeah, whatever it is, they're all referencing that. But I think you got the right answer. If a stamp design is required,
And it shall be signed and sealed.
yeah,
If an engineered design or if engineered specifications or design is required, then it shall be signed and sealed by the professional.
a licensed professional.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we're the body that determines what gets stamped and what doesn't get stamped, right? We're the body that determines criteria for licensure.
Right. Okay, so I think it may be if a response would be if a project requires a design or specifications by a professional, it shall be signed and sealed. Is that sufficient enough?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
you might,
Yeah.
well, you know, because I know that, you know, we design all kinds of structures and we always put we always sign and seal everything that we do. But you know, I know that, you know, nowadays there's the special inspections forms that we do, and there are some projects that are so small, you know, we're putting a lintel into a building somewhere, and the building official wants, you know, a statement of special inspections, and you're over there. I'm not even sure that how I can hone it down for such a small, project. But I guess, you know, in the meantime, I think that, you know, what you have to do is you have to base it upon, you know, the potential for something to go wrong too. You know, the larger the building, you know, the more potential there is for something to go wrong. You know, if it's a small, like we're saying, if it's a small boiler, or gee, somebody's changing their electrical box from, you know, 100 amps to 200 amps or 250 amps or 300 amps, who knows? But it's really should be based upon the complexity of what's going on to a certain point. So, you know, it's like we're saying, if it's large enough that it requires a design, then it should get signed and sealed. And I think, you know, maybe that's, you know, the kind of, you know, answer that we supplement that too is if it really needs a design where, you know, again, a contractor might not necessarily have the skills and the knowledge to, to install it properly, then, you know, at that point, it needs a design, so it needs to be signed and sealed. And I think that's exactly what you're saying.
Okay. Well.
I think it's a vague question, and I don't want to say you gave a vague answer, but your answer is
Right.
commensurate with the question.
Right. If a project requires a design or specification prepared by a professional, it shall be signed and sealed. That's all. That's
Exactly.
it's as simple as it gets.
Right.
You decide, Mark Mellinson. Anyway, is that something that we should ask
Jane?
Jane to just respond back, or do you want me to call him? I think we should say the board considered it, and in the
Yeah.
opinion of the board, if a project requires a design or specifications prepared by a professional, it shall be signed and sealed.
Sure. I think Jane could, yeah. I'll make a
The
motion,
building-
we have Jane provide that answer.
Yeah,
If you ask the guy to do something, have him sign off. That's basically all you're saying.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Don't need the guy to do anything, then he's not gonna sign, you know?
Okay. Is there a motion to
I'll make the motion.
authorize Jane to send that short answer?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next letter from Jessica Kruschek, she, her, or hers, is along the same line.
Yeah. Is it the same project?
Well, that was a question that came to mind, but I don't know. So this is a little bit different in that it involves an LEP, the way I'm reading it. And she points out that a permit is required when the end product of the design affects the property and personal safety, but that's not all of it. And then obviously the permit requirement is through regulations or ordinances or codes. But I think the answer is the same thing. If the project involves setting specifications or a design by a professional, then it should be signed and sealed. Otherwise, why did you go ask Ryan to do it?
You know, the only thing that I read is I read the last paragraph. She says, however, if an engineer designs a remedial system that is a large-scale hydraulic capture and treatment, for P&T, that goes out to bid for construction by various contractor, would those designs require a seal? Of course they would.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what I said.
that's-
If it involves setting specifications or preparing a design, it shall be signed and sealed.
Right. I mean, yeah, I mean, that should be, that shouldn't even be a question. If it goes out to bid, it's large enough for somebody to, that the specification should be designed before it goes out to bid, because unless it's a design build, but even with a design build, there are specifications and the design builder would sign and seal the drawings that he prepares.
That's correct.
So,
But
I mean,
and
it doesn't really matter, but somewhere there has to be a certain level of competence that you want to see and a certain level of quality that you defined in your bid process that needs to be defined. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you get the whole gambit as to what you're going to get. It could be at the lower end or it could be the high end, and you need to define that level of quality that you want to see.
Right. So even in a remediation project, the remediation has to be done to certain federal or other standards. You're setting the specifications. The bidder and the contractor rely on following it. They expect that you did it according to the appropriate specifications and codes. Therefore, sign and seal and take responsibility. So again, I think the answer to Jessica is the same thing. If a project requires setting specifications or preparation of a design, it shall be signed and sealed.
Correct.
Same thing. I'll make a motion, we
Could
give her
you-
the same response.
Can you say that again, Tony?
I said, if a project involves setting specifications or preparation of a design, it shall be signed and sealed by the professional.
Especially if it's going out to bid.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm going to bid on what you said has to be done and I do it, then you're responsible if I complete the task according to the specifications.
Right.
My responsibility is to do it, but you told me what to do. You're responsible.
Correct.
Therefore, you shall sign and seal. I don't know if the wording is correct, but if a project involves or requires setting specifications or preparation of a design, it shall be signed and sealed.
Yeah, I mean, Burns and McDonnell is a very big company, so I'm a little bit surprised. I don't know.
That they would ask.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, maybe they're just trying to clarify a little bit of a line here that might be a little blurry because, and I'm just trying to be sympathetic to what they're doing. Sometimes these jobs and whatever they're involved with, I can assure you it's probably pretty big.
Yep.
You know, there are times where, let's say, we'll bid projects where, like the engineer will say, you know, we think we need a supportive excavation here. But they leave the actual design of that temporary system, and she used that word temporary in here. They leave that design of that temporary system to the, you know, for the means and methods to the contractor. And so I don't know if she's kind of referring that this remediation system, they're going to say you need to remediate this groundwater or this soil to these standards, and you need to provide the design of the system to do so. I don't know if she's getting at that, where Burns and Mac puts out the documents as almost like a performance standard, but not give the prescriptive method to achieve it. If they give the prescriptive method to achieve it,
Yeah.
it needs to be signed. But if they
Right.
give the performance expectation, then you can leave the means and methods for temporary conditions to the contractor. So I don't know
Okay.
if that's what she's getting at here.
Well, I wrote in the margin, I said, for example, you know, sheet piling for a foundation is temporary, but that's significant. So if I designed the sheet piling for a jacking pit or a cofferdam, I'm responsible for that, right?
100%.
Because, right, so on the other, well, you just mentioned, I think is the other side of that. You're supposed to meet these standards. I set the standards, I signed and sealed it. I don't care how you do it, you got to do it, right? But I set the standards, therefore I shall sign and seal. Right? If you need to put up sheet piling, you're right. It's on you. I'm not going to tell you how to do the job.
But normally, if you require some, you know, the other professional to get involved in the performance of your specifications, then you would say in your, you know, in your specifications that you shall hire a design professional who designs sheet piling.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because-
that's good.
You know,
But-
because, you know, it's so it runs the whole gambit in terms of you don't, if you're not designing the sheet piling, you would want a design professional to design the sheet piling. You say, you know, you can use whatever kind of sheet piling you want, whether it's going to be 8 inches deep, 12 inches deep, if, you know, or it could be, you know, some H piles with lagging or whatever, and you design the most economical, you know, system that you think is going to work. But
Right.
you know, you get a design professional that will support your, you know, design that you're going to use.
I think that
So, I mean, runs the whole
Richard, from
gamut.
your standpoint, if you put in you told the guy to put up a beam 8 inches deep, and he
Right.
put in, you know, he put in 4, then he didn't comply. But you set the specification, you have to put in the 8. You should sign and seal that.
Right,
Because
exactly.
if he puts in something less, it's not your problem.
Right.
No, I
But-
just think that
But
it's
in
a
most-
simple answer. If you're setting the specifications or you're preparing the design, you have to sign and seal that so that others can rely on the fact that you knew what you were doing and you're responsible for it.
I agree
And I
with
think
that.
what Rob said, all the other means and methods are not what we're discussing here, but she
what I
alluded to
just
it.
said, what I said falls into your statement.
Yeah,
I mean, in my mind, and what I see typically is all permanent construction is designed by the engineer of record or
Right.
engineers of record, right?
right.
Sometimes temporary pieces get pushed on the contractors, but they're still designed because they require a design. So I think that goes back to your statement. If it requires a design, it's required, you know, it requires a licensed professional to design and stamp it.
Right. You're right there, Rob, also, is that along the way, if something had to be done, it wasn't that, you know, to meet the specifications set by the original designer, there could be 2 or 3 levels of signature along the way. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
So,
think it's a similar question and answer.
Right. well, I would think it's still the same thing. If it requires setting specifications or preparing a design that others rely on, then it shall be signed and sealed. Is that acceptable?
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
even if it's a performance spec, Tony,
Yes,
they're relying upon that spec.
yes, sir.
So I think that fits into that. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. Would you motion it, move it?
I'll make that motion, Tony.
You have
I'll
it, Jane, and
second.
you have it sufficiently recorded?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do, and I'll send it to you before I send it, just to review it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're okay
yeah,
with
we'll
that.
we'll pass it around to everybody and then just make sure we agree, okay? That would be helpful. All right, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, thank you, John. All those in favor of the motion to advise Jessica Krusek that, paraphrasing, if a project involves preparation of set specifications or a design, it shall be signed and sealed. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. It's interesting that the two questions came in at the same time and they may be related. But I think since the first one was from the building official talking about mechanical drawings and the other one is in this gray area of remediation by an LEP, I guess it was timely. All right. Then we had one surveying item that I can see, unless I missed one. And that was the application of Stephen Hyde, which Ken Peterson noticed in his summary that he would approve. But we looked to Bob Don and Ryan Thompson for same, and this would
I
involve,
would, I'll make a motion that we approve the application.
right, and he would have to take the state exam. Is that correct? Agreed?
Yes.
Agreed, Ryan?
Yes.
So is there a motion to approve Stephen Hyde to sit for the
Yes.
state exam on reciprocity?
Yes, I
Bob
will make
Vaughn?
a motion.
Thank you, sir.
And
Ryan?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, Jane, while Ryan is still here, and while I personally think he should participate, I don't believe he was sent any applications. But on the other hand, do we have a consensus on whether or not you want to be involved or listen or whatever? It certainly doesn't make sense for me not to have you involved, but I would like to be able to include you in some reviews. And if we have an attorney here that can comment, I think that'd be you, Jason. Do we have an opinion yet on the question that Jane has asked a couple of times?
I'm not an attorney.
What was that?
I'm not an attorney, and I don't see any
Okay,
attorney on here for DCP.
no, I don't either. All right. Well, we continue the dialogue and you know, as far as certainly sitting in, anybody can sit in. So Brian, if you're interested, you're
Yeah,
certainly welcome. But in the future, I think an individual member of our board who has the expertise and the experience should be able to comment, just as Al is able to comment and review and participate.
Yeah,
Just for,
I agree.
I just wanted to let you know that, Ryan, I did send an email to our attorney, Ryan, right after the board meeting, and then I followed up again, I think last week or so, and I CC'd
Yes.
Tony. I
Yeah,
haven't
you
received
did.
an answer. I asked him, and I'm still waiting on an answer.
I would
So
like
that's
you
why I
to
didn't
just
send
send
you
it
a name.
again. Send it again today after our current meeting, please, and say, and I think whatever his position is, please notify the next in line. You got to go right up the chain here and say, we need an answer. It's not that hard to consider.
He's the supervisor.
He's the supervisor?
Yes, he is.
Well, go to the Attorney General.
So I mean, just it's like we talked about before, I don't mind, I'll certainly make my comments, but I'm just not gonna vote until we have a decision,
Right.
an answer from the attorney. But I'll certainly make comments. But in this case, I didn't receive any and I wasn't able to look at any, so I actually do have some other things I'm gonna do, so I am going to sign off today. But in the
Okay.
future, I definitely want to continue to,
All right.
like we talked about.
If nothing
Chairman,
else, then,
Chairman, you
sending
actually-
off some applications for review, then you see what type of applications we receive. And then as a result of that, you'll be prepared for hitting the road running. Okay?
Chairman, you
All
may
right.
actually need to go to the Attorney General for the answer on this because the Attorney General is the board's lawyer. The DCP is not the board's lawyer. So if it's about how you guys should be acting, you probably do want to approach your lawyer at the Attorney General.
Okay, good advice. So Jane, if you wouldn't mind, you send it back to our attorney, Ryan, and copy the Attorney General and emphasize to the Attorney General, we have an opportunity to take advantage of a knowledgeable individual who was appointed to one side of the board, but he can provide so much more input for the board.
As
Okay.
part of the email that I did send to him, I asked him who was assigned to us at the Attorney General, so I didn't get that answer either. So, because I don't know who to address it to.
All right, then it's 2 questions. I think ignore our attorney, Ryan, and go right to the Attorney General. We need the answer to 2 questions, right? Who is our attorney, number 1, so we can get an answer, and number 2, we have a qualified member of our board, and we want him to be able to participate. Is there any reason why he cannot? Wearing 2 hats. For example, Bob Doan and I could do that very same thing. So why shouldn't Ryan be able to do it also? It's not in violation of the statute that required a dual license to, so I think it's a question that you got to go right to the Attorney General. If you don't mind sending that directly to him, copy our Ryan attorney and be done with it. Because he has to answer the first question, who represents us? All right?
Will do.
Thank you. All right. Ryan, Bob, your excuse. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll
See
move
you
on
guys.
to our regular agenda. The first item on page 2, because we've done our correspondence, we've talked about old business, which is Ryan Thompson, and the new business is Ryan Thompson. So we'll move on to the candidates who passed the NCAAS exams between June and August.
Chairman, I believe you still need to approve the previous minutes as well.
Well, I'm remiss again because I don't even know if I've printed them. And I am aware of that. And I don't know if they came.
I didn't see him.
No, we didn't have them. I went through the
They
5
did
items
not
that
come in
came.
the email.
Right, we don't have any minutes to review. Agreed?
Yeah, I didn't see him.
Yes,
Right.
I didn't see anything.
No, when the final agenda came through, there were 3 correspondences, what do you call it, supplemental and the primary. So at this point, we'll table review of any minutes from our July meeting because we didn't receive them.
All right, that's my error. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. We'll catch up. Minutes of July. Okay, so anyway, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 applicants, 5 civil and 1 mechanical that passed CBT NCAAS exams. That's for just for information. Which moves us on to Class 1 Credit Part 1 applicants. I reviewed 2, Bova and Hooksey. Syracuse for Mr. Bova, working for Town of Trumbull, and Cooksey, Delaware, working for Ty and Bond, BS in Environmental Engineering. Both good experience. My recommendation is to approve. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
I'll make the
So moved.
motion.
Thank you,
So
Rob.
moved.
Thank you,
Second.
John.
Second,
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Similar applications for Joshua Kopis and Matthew Daganai, reviewed by Richard Swezak.
Okay, I did review Joshua Kopis and I found it interesting that he's a superintendent in New York State. And he's been doing a lot of work. He has I believe a technology degree in construction management, but he had in construction engineering, I should say, not construction management, construction engineering. And he has over 12 years experience. So I will make a motion that we approve him. And in terms of the Matthew Dagnalis, ease or whatever. I didn't get any endorsements in terms of, I received everything else. He has 4 years and 2 months of experience, but I didn't see any endorsers. So I'm not sure if that was just an error.
Is you working for the same firm?
No, yes, he worked for the same firm for, his entire period, I believe.
I wouldn't worry about it.
All right. So in that sense, if I'll make a motion that we accept both of them. And
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Bob Doan, who was unable to attend, gave me his recommendations. He recommended approval of both Goldberg and Gutierrez. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
so moved.
I'll move
Thank you,
that.
John. The second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Thank you, Rob. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And the last two, Richard Laso and Christopher Parada, reviewed by John DeWolf.
They're both model law and I move approval.
Thank you, John.
I'll second.
Thanks, Al. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Under class 4 applicants, I reviewed Alfonso through Benedetto. There's 5 applicants on page 3. Again, all model law. We have 5 states represented, 2 on the West Coast and 3 on the East Coast. So we got a cross section of the country. So my recommendation is to approve all for class 4 reciprocity.
I'll make a
Good
motion that we do that.
Thank you, Richard. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rob. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. And then Richard Swezak reviewed Canale through Haas. 7 applicants on page 3 for class 4 reciprocity.
6 of them were model law and 1 was non-model law, but they had their education from Canada, Miss Danzig. So I'll make a motion that we accept all 7 applications.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rob. And just for a discussion item. So we have 1 so-called non-model law from Canada. And later on, we're going to raise the issue about the evaluation again. I thought we had an agreement with Canada as equivalent. So it's a little bit odd right now on how we're looking at these, but.
And she did have a master's and a bachelor's, so.
Yeah. Anyway, lacking any further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve Canale through Haas on page 3 for reciprocity, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, those are approved. Now I have to flip a page to get to Bob Doan's comments here for his next group. Bear with me for a minute. I got so many pieces of paper coming at me yesterday from Bob. Oh, here we go. Okay. Bob Doan reviewed the next group of applicants for class 4 reciprocity on page 3 from Harmon through McCarran. And he has recommended approval for all 7. I just had to find it where he was actually writing it. So is there a motion to accept his recommendation to approve Harmon through McCarran for class 4 reciprocity?
I'll make the motion.
So move.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a second? Who was the second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. All right, I got that there covered. Okay. The next group of applicants for Class 4 reciprocity reviewed by John DeWolf from Niez through Tyros on page 3 and 4 of our regular agenda.
They're all model law and I move approval.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. On page 4 of our regular agenda, we had a list of applicants for Class 9 license passing the EIT. So all of those in favor of approval. Well, is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, John. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed the request for a reinstatement of George Fredette. So he recommended approval. He was continuously licensed in another state and he did sign and seal while it was lapsed, but he recommends approval. So is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
So
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Richard.
I'll second.
We're all hesitating and waiting.
Everybody's
Okay,
being polite.
moved by Richard, seconded by Al. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Let's see, okay, got that. Got that and that. That's all done. We did that and that's done. So that takes care of our regular agenda, which moves us to our supplemental. On the supplemental agenda, we took care of the correspondence and we have responses for that. I reviewed the next application for Mr. Fadi Habil. And it's in this packet right here. At any rate, he's a model law engineer. My recommendation is to approve him for Class 4 reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
Hey, Tony,
Yes, sir.
before you do that, it says reconsideration. Did we deny him previously or something?
I don't know that for sure because I got the application and I don't know what it was. Oh, I know what this one was. This is the one I wanted to raise the issue about. It's a foreign degree. That was my other note here on the other margin. I have too many copies of too many agendas, but I said to myself, refer to the application. So my notes are that this went through NCEES, but there's no evaluation. So should we not have a list? So when we made the inquiry with Jane a few weeks ago, right, Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not giving us a summary. And yet it's very clear on the NCEES review, he's a model law engineer.
Yeah, that's weird.
So we tabled it for that reason. Thank you for reminding me. And then it comes back as a model law. Now, he got a master's from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. And if you remember, years ago, that was our criteria until we decided that NCEES should be evaluating. So what are we missing here? We don't give a model law to the guy from Canada where we have a relation, and we've got an Arab Academy for Science and Technology back in 2011, and then a master's in mechanical from New Jersey Institute of Technology in 2015. And so if there was an evaluation somewhere, it didn't show up in the packet. So do we know? And then again, if he's got a foreign degree, he shouldn't have been on the model law, no?
I
So
would agree.
after the last meeting, I had contacted NCES regarding that. And then I think I forwarded what they had said. They are approving or reviewing or evaluating foreign. So ABET is now accrediting foreign degrees from certain
You
institutions.
dropped off, Jane.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yes, I can hear.
so ABET is now accrediting foreign degrees. So that's why
So-
there's no evaluation, because ABET accredited it.
So
Right, so what I
certain
said, I
I
think
got
back
your
to you.
email. I got your email, and the comment I had on that was, how do you know which of the foreign colleges have been approved?
Al, I did the same thing. I think I asked Jane. Barbara used to have a book, and then that was Jane. Remember, she said, Jane, Barbara told you, "Oh, I just threw that book away." But there should be a new book now, right? So
Well,
does
it's all
NCAAS have a new book?
online. No, it's through ABET. Like I can check that. ABET has a website that you can
Okay.
go and look up any program, any
Okay.
school, any program on there. So that's what I do. So
Okay.
if it's their MLE through NCES, then that means that it's got to be accredited through ABET.
So
if
are
that
we
makes
to
sense.
assume that if we have the NCAAS cover sheet, I call it, and it has a model law on it, because that comes from NCAAS, then we should take it as at face value that it's on the list.
Yes.
Okay,
Wow, okay.
that's
That's a
set well
big
with
hole.
everybody.
That's a big hole.
Yeah, that's new, but okay.
So anyway, based on that correspondence that Jane and I had, because that was the question I asked, how do we know? Then my recommendation was based on that model law and the NCAAS process at this point. He has all the qualifications and experience and a master's from New Jersey Institute of Technology. So my recommendation is to approve. But Rob, thank you for asking the question and reminding me of what all my notations are. So is there a
I'll
motion
make a
to
motion.
accept?
I will
I'll
make a
second.
motion.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. I'm glad we had the discussion because now it's on the record. And maybe, Jane, we make sure that gets in the minutes. Or we should anyway, but yes, thank you. So all those in favor of the motion to approve the model law engineer, Fady Habil, for reciprocity, class 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed Melvin Monsi Joseph, and his recommendation was to approve for class 4 reciprocity.
I'd ask the same question on that one.
Yeah, I
why
don't know
would-
what that one was. And Bob,
That's exactly the same as the previous
okay, 'cause I didn't get
applicant.
his.
Now, let me back up a little. So the fact that you didn't get that for the Canadian outfit, the assumption is that that school that person graduated from is not approved? Am I wrong here? In other words,
That's-
I'm-
Which
That's what
one
you
are you
have to
referring
assume.
to?
Yeah.
In other words, he didn't make the grade for model law engineer.
Okay.
That was Richard's review.
Yeah,
For years
Ilana
on
Dancik,
Canada.
she got from University of Alberta, she got, a bachelor's in civil engineering, Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, 2008. And then from the University of British Columbia, she got a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2013. And maybe they're not upgrading or updating their profiles in terms of, if they're starting to do it for foreign degrees, why shouldn't they be doing for the Canadian, applicants also?
Yeah.
I thought they always did Canada. I thought Canada came in that way for years where they were
Right,
approved.
that's what I thought too, John.
Right.
Canada was accepted for years without question, but obviously there's different universities, but Alberta was the BS and MS, well, I guess it's worthwhile just double checking that, Jane, just for curiosity, if nothing else going forward.
Yeah.
But did Danzig, Richard, have an NCAAS cover sheet?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
She
so
was, yes.
It's
she was.
confusing as to why it wouldn't be classified as model law then.
Yep, she has her, she actually has, a structural engineering 16 hours degree too. So she has, the PE exam,
Yes, there's no
the,
doubt she's qualified, but the question is
FE.
why the disparity in the review?
well, she has the NCAAS, EDU, which is, equivalent education, symbol. So they have acknowledged that it is equivalent,
Okay,
but she's not model law.
we'll have to figure it out. I don't know why. We'll have to ask that. Jane and I will ask that next week, right, Jane? You making a list
Yes.
for next week?
I'm trying to.
Well, that's one we can ask, clarification of what NCAAS is doing relative to model law evaluation.
Because I don't know if you can see that, but you can sort of see, hopefully, if I don't move around. I
No,
can't see
you got
what.
it. You got the PE there, but it doesn't indicate.
Yeah, well, it says the PE and it has the
The 4
NCAAS.
plus.
Yeah, and the NCAAS equivalent.
Right, that's
Education.
that's what that symbol represents, is the 4-year equivalent.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Okay. It could be just an oversight, but it's
Yeah.
where we are. Okay, so let's keep going. So anyway, Bob, based on what he knows and has read of the application, has recommended approval. And based on our discussion, are we willing to accept his recommendation? Is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Rob. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to approve Melvin Monsi Joseph for Class 4 reciprocity as a reconsideration, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Where was that, where was his education? If we were doing the same thing? Do we
I
know?
can look, I can double check right now.
All right, it doesn't matter. In the meantime, we'll move on. Once again, we have an application which I reviewed for Mr. Chi Chen. And Mr. Chi Chen has a degree from, a master's rather, from Illinois in geotech in 15, then a PhD in structures in 18. And he wants to take this structural 2 exam. My recommendation is to approve him, of course. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
moved.
Thank you, John.
I'll move it.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. So the 2 structural engineers have moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion to approve Mr. Chi Chen for structural exam, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. You can't get a better endorsement than that.
Hey,
Okay,
Tony,
we
did you
have-
get the reconsideration of the Class 1 credit part 1? Was that last individual that you, John, and I talked about? Brown,
What
Isaiah,
was the,
Oh,
What was the
okay, I'm
name?
ready to go on that.
Isaiah
Um,
James Asa Brown. He should be
I-
on
I
page
will
1.
work-
I don't
I
know if
will-
you got the,
Yeah,
page 1 of
Okay,
our
I got-
supplemental?
yes.
yeah.
Okay. The way is that,
Tony, that's the one,
yeah, great, it's,
I
Tushar Gotti. Okay,
am I still on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
yeah, you're good. I'm talking
Okay.
over you,
I
Mike. So we got, go
I
ahead.
reviewed Isaiah Brown for last month. He had a 2018 BS in civil engineering, and then he did an MBA for the next year, finishing in September 2019. And he said he had 4 years, and I question it because it looked like the MBA was full-time. Jane followed through and got an email from him. And basically, the MBA was full-time until the summer of 2019. He then took 2 courses, but he worked full-time as an engineer. So he has just over 4 years experience, so he's okay. So I recommend that he be approved for Class 1 credit part 1.
Okay, I'll second it.
What was the name on that one again? I have lost that page.
Isaiah Brown.
Brown, okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve for class 1 credit part 1, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Which leads us to page 2 of our supplemental agenda. And John, you had two applicants to review, which were Tushar Gadi and Patrick Rizik.
And I move approval for both. For
Second,
class 1 exam credit part 1.
I'll second.
thank you, Rob. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I reviewed 2 applications for Mr. Edward Bauman and Mr. Brian Belden. Both are model law. Mr. Bauman is a structural engineer. He's got a Massachusetts license. Mr. Belden is Iowa State bachelor's in 98, and he's currently licensed in Kansas. So my recommendation is to approve. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Rob. Second? Thanks,
Second.
Richard, because I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at Al.
Well, you got it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I'll do the next ones.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So, Richard, you get your chance now. You've got 4 applicants, Cosenza and Dry, Gonzalez and Hammer.
Actually, there's 5, but
That's
you know,
right. I missed Sinam.
Yeah, Sinam is actually non-model law. They got their degree from India, and then they had a master's in civil engineering from the University of Akron. And you know they're licensed in Georgia, and so I'll make a motion that we accept the first 4 the first 4 and leave Jennifer Hammer out. Only
Okay.
because she got a degree in May of 2020. So she only has 3 years and 2 months of experience. But her evaluation from NCAAS, she's non-model law because she doesn't have enough experience. But they gave her a year of experience before she graduated from college. So she was working while she was going to college, and they gave her a year of experience for going to college. But our regulations say they have to have 4 years after
Right.
the degree.
Right.
So she
So-
only has 3 years, 2 months.
Just make them separate. Just make them separate.
Yes.
We'll do the first 4.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the first 4 applicants.
So it's Sinam,
I
Cosenza,
second it.
Dry, and Gonzalez. Is there a
Correct.
second?
I second.
Thank you, Al. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion carries. So the next one is Jennifer Hammer, which you are moving to delay.
Until she gets an adequate experience after her degree.
Right.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to deny Class 4 reciprocity due to lack of experience following the degree for Jennifer Hammer. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So that's a delay, a deny. Bob, don't review the next 3, which are Householder, Jones, and Lavalley. Just wanted to point out that Lavalley was non-model law because it does not indicate a 4-year degree, but he has a master's from UMass. So his question is, should we request an evaluation of that non-ABET from New England College back in 73? So his recommendation is to request an evaluation for Roland Lavalley.
You know, if he's been
70.
It's a
73?
transcript. Yeah, it's back in 73. It's a transcript from New England College in 73, but it does not indicate that he had a 4-year degree. I don't know what that means, but it was not.
Okay, so
Yeah, so we just delay for an evaluation of the undergraduate degree. That's his recommendation. The motion to
I'll make
accept
that
that.
motion that we have the undergraduate degree evaluated before we approve.
Right, okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rob. So it's moved and seconded to delay reciprocity for Roland Lavalley pending evaluation of the undergraduate degree.
Because I got a question in terms of, if it was a technology degree, all he would need would be 7 years of experience. So he obviously has way more than those 7 years of experience. And if it's was it in engineering or was it non-engineering degree?
He just says that it's a non-model law, no ABET, transcript from New England from 73 does not indicate it was a 4-year degree. In other words, Bob couldn't tell if he actually finished a 4-year program. So it's just a matter of, we could either inquire of the transcript or evaluate it.
Tony, that's my question, the 4-year degree part, Tony. That's my question.
Yeah.
If you're not sure he has a 4-year degree, that's a
Right.
stopper.
Right.
So
So then he
I
went on and
just-
got a master's, but we've seen that. That's like going into chemistry and then getting a master's in environmental. It doesn't add up to what we're looking for. So if you didn't finish it.
If I can pipe in, so
Yes, please.
I just looked him up on NCEES.
Okay.
According to their, it says that he graduated in May 1973 from New England College, which a BS in civil engineering.
Okay, well, that changes it. So Bob Doan said he couldn't tell whether or not it was a 4-year degree. But if you now have different information, then his recommendation would be different.
Yeah.
So his recommendation was, shall we get an evaluation? But if Jane has overridden that by confirming that it was in fact a 4-year degree, then you add on, even if it were a technology degree, has ample experience of 50 years. So let's get on with the motion. So would anyone, you want to make a
withdraw
motion?
my motion.
Okay. So would you like to make a motion to approve Lavalley based on the new information from Jane?
I move approval.
I'll
I'll
second.
like-
second it.
Rob, your motion to approve this, to second is okay? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to approve Roland Lavalley based on the fact that he does have a 4-year degree from New England College, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Then Bob
It was
did.
long enough ago that,
What was
the
that?
degree was so far back. The degree was so far back that, I don't think it needed to be evaluated at this point, as long as it's a BS in civil engineering.
Yes, sir. So we're good. So now we have Householder and Jones. Bob recommended approval of both. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation?
So
I'll
moved.
make the motion. Or I'll second.
Okay. So Rob and John. All those in favor of the motion to approve Morgan, Householder, and Lawrence Jones for reciprocity class 4, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I do believe that completes the supplemental
no.
agenda.
So John DeWolf has them.
No. I've got 3, Tony.
What was that, John?
I've got 3 for class 4 that follow Bob Doan.
There you go. I'm sorry. You're right. As usual. Robertson, Young, and
Okay.
Ziegler.
Ziegler has a Bachelor of Technology and 22 years of experience, so he's fine. So I move approval for all 3 for class 4.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rob. All those in favor of the motion to approve Robertson, Young, and Ziegler for class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So I do believe that does cover all the applications and
We have a
correspondence.
reinstatement.
Yeah, there's just the
One
one
more reinstatement?
reinstatement.
Which one is that? Now, let's see. Oh, that's because it's over on Bob Doan. See, that's, I got three different sections of agendas I gotta keep track of. So, all right, we took care of this section. We took care of that one. Now we're down to, you're right, the last reinstatement, which was Shannon Joseph. Okay, let's just see. He submitted an application describing his experience for the past 22 years. He has been working for the Georgia DOT and thus continuously involved in the engineering profession. He recommends reinstatement. So Bob reviewed it. The guy's been involved in engineering based on his application. He has not signed and sealed. He was not continuously licensed, so he's reinstating here based on the new application. So Bob Doan's recommendation was to approve. Is there a motion to accept his recommendation based on the fact that the gentleman has had good engineering experience working for Georgia DOT?
So move.
Thank you. Who was that, John?
Juan?
Thank
Yep.
you. Second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to approve reinstatement of Shahan Joseph, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We did hide, took care of that. So I do think that covered the last aspect of our agendas. Is there any new business?
Motion to
When's our next
adjourn.
meeting? Okay,
Next meeting is October, I think.
October
Okay.
3rd.
thank you.
Wait, is that the next meeting?
October 3rd. We
I
don't
will
have
not
one in
be-
September.
Okay, I don't have my calendar, but I will not be available on October 3rd. I'll be traveling.
Okay. All right, John, thank you.
I'll send an email.
All right.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Al.
I'll second.
Thanks, Rob. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye. Enjoy the rest of the summer. We'll see you in October. Thank you.
All right.
See you guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.